stayed completely silent when my daughter-in-law announced that her parents were moving into my house. She never asked for permission. She simply smiled and said everything had already been decided. Everyone expected me to argue, but I quietly agreed instead. They thought they had won. What they found waiting in my driveway a week later changed everything, and none of them ever looked at me the same way again. I spent more than 30 years building the home where my late wife and I raised our son. Every room held memories that could never be replaced, and after she passed away, the house became the last connection I still had with her. When my son married, I welcomed his wife warmly because I wanted our family to grow stronger. For a while, everything seemed peaceful, but little by little she began treating my home as though it already belonged to her. At first, it was small changes to the furniture and decorations. Then she started making decisions without even asking my opinion. I ignored those moments because I believed peace inside the family was more important than winning small arguments. Everything changed one Sunday afternoon during lunch. My daughter-in-law casually announced that her parents had sold their house and would be moving into mine permanently. She smiled confidently and said the decision had already been made because the house was far too large for one person anyway. My son looked uncomfortable but remained silent while her parents thanked her as if I had already agreed. I felt every eye in the room waiting for my reaction. Instead of arguing, I calmly smiled and told them they were welcome to come the following Saturday. That answer surprised everyone, but none of them noticed the quiet confidence behind my words. During the next few days, I contacted my attorney and property manager. Years earlier, after my wife passed away, I had transferred the house into a protected family trust with one important condition. Only I could authorize permanent residence, and anyone attempting to occupy the property without written approval could legally be removed immediately. I also arranged for professional movers to relocate my most valuable belongings to another property and hired a security company to install new access systems. I never mentioned any of this to my son because I wanted him to see the truth unfold naturally instead of believing I was creating unnecessary conflict. Saturday finally arrived, and three vehicles pulled into my driveway loaded with furniture and smiling family members. My daughter-in-law stepped out first, proudly pointing toward the front door as though she already owned the place. The smiles disappeared the moment they saw the locksmith replacing every exterior lock while security personnel carried documents toward them. My attorney calmly introduced himself and explained that the property belonged to a protected trust, not to my son, and certainly not to anyone who had invited themselves to live there. Every document they expected to sign had already been prepared, but none of them worked in their favor. The confidence on my daughter-in-law's face vanished instantly. Her parents demanded explanations while insisting they had already packed their entire lives. My attorney politely handed them a copy of the trust agreement showing they had absolutely no legal right to occupy the property. Then I calmly explained that respect is never something people can demand through pressure or manipulation. If they had simply asked for temporary help, we could have discussed every option together. Instead, they attempted to take control of a home that represented decades of sacrifice and memories, believing I would surrender because I wanted to avoid family conflict. My son finally broke his silence. For the first time, he admitted he had been pressured into agreeing because he feared constant arguments with his wife. Watching everything collapse opened his eyes to how often his opinions had been ignored throughout their marriage. He apologized for failing to defend me and promised never to remain silent again when something was clearly wrong. His apology meant more to me than any legal victory because I realized he had finally understood that protecting family also means standing up for what is right. In the weeks that followed, my daughter-in-law and her parents moved into a rented apartment instead. Our relationship never fully recovered, but my son slowly rebuilt the trust between us by visiting regularly and helping maintain the home where he had grown up. Looking back, I learned that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. Sometimes remaining calm is the strongest response because it allows the truth to reveal itself without shouting or revenge. That day they expected to take my home without permission, but instead they discovered that respect can never be forced, and karma often arrives through consequences people create for themselves. They arrived believing they were moving into my house forever. They left realizing they had never owned a single key, a single room, or a single decision. My greatest victory was not proving them wrong. It was teaching my son that protecting family begins with protecting respect. Karma did the rest.